Good morning, everyone. It is, of course, Oliver Joyce from Whiskey Barrel Studios here. And guess what? Swords and Sandals Pirates, it's live on Steam, finally. After a long time in development. I just wanted to talk today a little bit about my thoughts on the game, the journey involved in getting it launched, and the future of the game in particular, and a little bit more about the series. It's going to be a bit of an ad-lib talk, just, off the cuff and off the top of my head, which I so often do in these videos. So if it feels a bit rambling, I apologize. Firstly, the classic YouTube, hi to all my new subscribers. Great to have you on board. Thanks for all the interest in Swords and Sandals as a series. And that's what this YouTube channel is basically about. It's about the projects that I do, little bits of trivia and gameplay and anything to do with the series and my games in general, and game development. You'll find it here on this channel. So hi everybody, thanks for joining. All right, more about Swords and Sandals Pirates. It was originally conceived back at the end of 2014, I believe. I started work on another game called Everyone Gets Treasure back in 2014, which was sort of like almost a roguelike game with a couple of heroes going up a tower, fighting monsters and so on. And I was building that for a couple of months, really, and I got to a point where there's a prototype. There's actually a video on that on somewhere else on my channel, I think. But I got to a point and I was reading a book about the maritime explorers, Cortez and Vasco da Gama, and even the evil Christopher Columbus, depending on your point of view, and just their amazing adventures at sea. And I'd been listening also to a Dan Carlin Hardcore History podcast, and it just really gripped me how kind of crazy these long voyages were, and how the crew were forced to eat, scrape stuff off the deck to eat albatross droppings and get into fights with natives, and just most of them that set sail never returned. And I thought that is a great topic for a game, a fun topic, of course. And so my original plan was to set it in medieval, actually not even medieval, it's actually the golden age of exploration, which is really we're talking sort of 1400s to sort of 1700s, really, when, the Portuguese and the Spanish and the English and the French, amongst others, were divvying up the world for themselves. And they'd send ships from England and Portugal and France and so on to the new world of South America and Africa and so on, in hopes of bringing back the great treasures and spices and so on. Anyway, I digress. I told you this video would be rambling, and it is. I started a little prototype of the game back in 2014, of course, towards the end of the year, and by Christmas, I had this little game where you had a ship going around an ocean. It was designed for phones, and you could scroll the ship around the world, and it would go around, and there was a couple of little dots for islands and so on. And I thought, that looks like fun. That will be a good game to play on the mobile phone, because there wasn't much in the way of good pirate games. So that's where it began. Still drinking the instant coffee. Hopefully the game sells well enough that I can upgrade and buy a coffee machine. Okay. Anyway, I was building this game, and I kept going with the idea of the adventures in the island and so on. And I wrote all these choose your adventure style mini stories and drew pictures. And I got really into the resource gathering, and I started sketching out hundreds and hundreds of different resources like tea and coffee and diamonds and amethysts and rubies and all sorts of things, hundreds of them. And I gave each one a weight, a use by date, a type of food group for the foods, not quite to the point of calorie counts and so on, but I went into so much depth, and I put this whole system in place, and I had the whole resource gathering and everything, and it was all working. And that was by about sort of March of that year. and it wasn't that much fun. So I realized that this whole resource gathering component of the game just wasn't going to work out. So I had to scrap it and simplify it, and then I made it more about going around fighting other pirate captains. You actually wanted to capture them, like almost like wanted posters. So it was more of a quest-based system where you first had to raise 500 gold, get a shipyard, build a ship, and then chase these various pirates. I can't speak this morning. Sorry. Chase these various pirate captains around a map, and I thought, well, that doesn't really fit into the classic, you know, real world pirate thing. I mean, it kind of did, but there's been a lot of games sort of done in that the Caribbean sort of environment. So I set it in a new area, renamed all the islands to just random island names and so on, and built that version of the game. And I got that out to a bunch of people by about June of 2015, I believe. And I even approached some publishers, such as Team 17, I believe, Paradox, a few other ones whose name escaped me. And they all replied with a polite thank you, but no thank you, because the game looked very budget at the time and the UI was very rough and so on. And to be honest, the game didn't have a really strong gameplay loop. So I mean, they gave me some encouraging feedback and said, you know, keep working on this, but in this current state, we're not interested. Now, back then, I didn't have the rights to Swords and Sandals either. After the whole kerfuffle with the old company, nobody was building Swords and Sandals. They weren't. I wasn't. I built You Are a Knight, of course, the medieval game, which would end up becoming Swords and Sandals Medieval. But that was in limbo too. So I was really just kind of like, what kind of game can I build? And I can't build a Sword and Sandals game, but I want to build a world that feels like Sword and Sandals, and my art looks like the Sword and Sandals art, because it's my art, it's the stuff I draw. So it felt a little bit like a Sword and Sandals game. Anyway, around this time, two things happened. Firstly, a deal went through that sent the rights to Sword and Sandals from the old company to a publisher in America called eGames.com. Now, a lot of people are familiar with this story. I've told it many times in previous videos, but they are a wonderful publisher, you know, small but great, and they were super supportive and were really keen to bring the Sword and Sandals games to life again. And I did a deal with them to first remake the old Sword and Sandals 2 and whichever other Sword and Sandals I could find, and put them up on the App Store and so on. And then we'd think about new projects. And so the first one of those to go up was Sword and Sandals 2 Redux. But when this happened, I basically had to park the old game, which at the time was called Ships and Scurvy. And it had a name and a logo and everything, and was, I reckon, about maybe 60% complete at the time. But it was parked. And the other thing that happened to me was I got a full-time job. Now, I'd been working as a freelancer and building my own stuff between 2014 and June 2015, so about 18 months. And the money was okay, but it wasn't really enough, because my girlfriend and I at the time, we were trying to save a deposit for a house. She's now my wife now, and we have a house and a baby, of course. So it all worked out. But I needed a full-time job, and so I took one up at a local educational company, building kids' educational apps and mini games and that kind of thing. I'm still there now, and they're lovely people. I only work there part-time these days because the Sword and Sandals, the Redux series, has been profitable enough that I've been able to go part-time. And with every new game that goes out, I'm able to sort of increase that journey, and I'm hoping to one day really be able to focus on Whiskey Barrel full time, just so I can really do what I love and bring you all the all the Swords and Sandals games I could, because I really feel like I want to expand the world of the Sword and Sandals stuff. It's all in my head. There's so much more than what you see there. So in a nutshell, Ships and Scurvy was parked until this year. And so Sword and Sandals 2 Redux, Sword and Sandals 5 Redux, and of course Sword and Sandals Medieval, and the little mini fighters project were all built over the space of the last couple of years. And that kept me very, very busy. And when the last one came out in January this year, I finally was able to go back and look at this game and think, what have I got here? What is actually involved in getting this game made? And I looked at it and thought, you know what, now that I can make Sword and Sandals games again, this game really should be an SNS game, and it should be set in the world of Tritonia, which is, of course, the Swords and Sandals universe. It was set off the coast of Brandor, which is the main continent where, you know, King Lionel and Chaos and Antares and Belgrave and Wolfgang and Arglax and all the characters from the game generally fight. But I set it to the west of Brandor and created 50 different islands, and I kind of had to rejig it a bit just to fit it into the SNS world, rename some of the islands and so on like that. But eventually I got what I feel to be a pretty fun little game that feels like it's part of the SNS universe. Now, another part of that was bringing the characters to the game. So I brought in 10 characters, 5 new, I think, and maybe 5 classic returning characters from the old games. Because I wanted to feel like, you know, you're playing an SNS game, you really should have the classic characters in the game. So Antares and Belgrave and so on. But it didn't make that much sense for them to be all, you know, competing for these ocean resources after the events of Swords and Sandals 5, because, you know, by that point Antares is dead, Belgrave is getting old, Wolfgang's old, Lionel is old, and so on. So I set this before Swords and Sandals 1. And if, for the fans of the series who really know the games, you might recall in the beginning of Swords and Sandals 1, the downloadable version, there's an introduction with the pirate ship, and these pirates going with their little mugs, and eventually the ship hits an iceberg and they sink and the captain goes down with the ship and so on. So the setting was there to bring pirates into the game, and pirates have always been part of the Swords and Sandals universe, at least in my head they have. There's a couple of the arena champions in the first one, Bosun Smythe and Nine Cat Jack the pirate. So I thought, you know, let's set this game before all that and make it a conquest for the seas. And so that's all basically what happened. And I began work on this game probably, I reckon, about April or so, because there's a few months of other, you know, porting of other things, and I don't even remember what I was working on. I probably took a little bit of a break. But from April until now, I've been working on Swords and Sandals Pirates, and, you know, finally, it's launched on Steam on the 1st of December. And it's been, you know, 4 years in the making, but not actually 4 years in development. And I'm kind of exhausted by it, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. There's a lot of challenges to building a game over that long because technology changes. And I'll be the first to admit, the game, it's cute, and I love the art and the characters and so on. But it looks dated, I'll admit that. My style is quite cartoony and almost rudimentary in its simplicity. It feels like an indie game. It doesn't feel like a big polished AAA game. You're never going to mistake it for one of those. But there was a bunch of things that I would love to have been able to add to the game. The technology that I use, air and styling, to be technical, just doesn't have the capabilities for this kind of stuff. So I couldn't really do real-time reflections on the ships and the water and have lovely sparkling oceans. I couldn't do realistic daytime, nighttime lighting. The particle effects were very simple and not much to them. I couldn't put too many ships in the ocean without the game slowing down. There was just a lot of stuff that I realized that I've been hanging on to this engine for far too long. And you'll notice in the Redux series that as fun as they are to play, they look a bit dated, you know. So I am announcing that this is the very last game that I'll be making ever. Never making a game again. No. The last game that I'll be making in the Adobe Air and styling engine. So from 2019, I'll be moving on to Unity. About damn time. I've said this year in and year out that I'll be moving on to it, but this time I mean it. And the next game you see from me, which is at present still a work in progress, it's all in my head, doing things on paper. I've got a couple of ideas, And there will probably be 2 or 3 games released next year that I'm working on, concurrently. Nothing's on screen yet, but they'll all be made in Unity. I may do some ports of the original Swords and Sandals, maybe even Crusader and SNS 2. Literally the original Flash games. If I can bring them onto mobile without any changes, I'll do that back in the air using air and stuff. But they're not going to be remade. They're just going to be maybe brought onto mobile. Let me know in the comments if you think you'd like to play those ones, and I'm going to investigate if it can be done. But I will be bringing the new ones, all the new games in the Sword and Sandals series and beyond. We'll be using Unity, which just means I can use all the cool particle effects and all the lighting, all the stuff that you expect from the modern indie game. That's why all these other games you see out there just look so cool. It's just because Unity has this, and Unreal has the power to do all this great stuff that I haven't had the technology to do. Plus, it means potentially we could bring this game to not only Steam and mobile and Android and so on, iOS and Android, but we can maybe bring this to Xbox One and PS4 and even the Switch. How much fun would that be, having a Sword and Sandals game on the Switch? The ultimate goal is to make Swords and Sandals 6 and make it multiplayer and cross-platform and just bigger and better than ever. 3D, but have the characters look and feel like the classic ones, but have the camera panning around you and the roar of the arena and be able to jump around and really have a modern feeling Sword and Sandals game. That is the ultimate goal, but that isn't going to happen quickly. That's going to take resources and time and money, and I wouldn't think that game would be out until 2020 at the very earliest, maybe longer. But it's going to happen. But I want to do 1 or 2 smaller Sword and Sandals related projects before then. Anyway, this video was supposed to be talking about Swords and Sandals Pirates. So I'm going to wrap this up soon. But the game is out on Steam. I'm happy with how it's going so far. Sales have been fine. Not amazing, but not too bad. It's making a little bit of money, and that is nice. I'm going to be bringing the game to mobile in the next few weeks, iOS and Android. I'm actually working on that today. As you can see here, I have a phone ready to test out the version on. I've played it before on the phone. It works. Just a few little optimizations, and I've got to do the obligatory, put in the mobile ads and, the unfortunate realities of in-app purchases, that kind of thing. Not too many, just a Maximus mode and an Ultratus mode. I want to make this fair for you guys and reasonably priced. But I got to do it because that's the mobile market. They'll be coming out before Christmas for sure. I'm also patching Swords and Sandals Pirates because people have been giving me feedback on Steam that they love some bits, they don't love other bits. Today or tomorrow there'll be a patch going out that just fixes a couple of small bugs, and then over the next few weeks I'll do another larger patch which adds a help guide to the game and potentially 1 or 2 more little features to the game which I'm keeping secret. Nothing big, just 1 or 2 little things. And I'm going to keep revising and patching the game as I go, but not forever, because you don't want to dwell on the past too long. The game is built. I'm happy with it. It's a complete game, and I need to move on to other projects. And you don't want to be one of those developers that's constantly tinkering with the game. And it's a game. I've heard there's a famous saying: a game is never finished, only released. So I could work on this game for years and years and years, but it's at the point where it's ready and it's playable and it's fun. If you haven't played it yet, please check out the trailer. It's on my YouTube channel. I did a 3-minute long trailer the other night at about 1 in the morning or something. Typing away like edit, cut, add music, and then the next morning I'm like, all right, what did I actually make? And then it turned out fine, but really running on fumes. I've been working very late over the last month or so on this game just to get it released, which can be exhausting when you can combine that with the baby. Little Isaac's 10 months old now. Can you believe it? Amazing. Not quite old enough to do game testing, but we'll get him there. So yeah, a couple of patches coming up, mobile versions. Then I'm going to take a bit of a break over the late December and mid-January. Then I'm going to fire up Unity and start work on the next game, which we'll start talking about. And I want to bring you videos on that game's development and bring you along for the ride because I love you guys. You're wonderful fans. You're so interactive. All the comments on YouTube, on the Discord channel, Steam, even Reddit recently. It's been wonderful to see all these players come out and just say how much they love the series growing up. I'm still working on them, believe it or not, all these years later. And as you grow up, I too grow up. And we'll grow old together. And I'm going to keep making these games as long as you keep enjoying them. So yeah, that is my final thoughts on Swords and Sandals Pirates. I'm really proud of it. I got to say, I'm happy with how it turned out. I didn't think the end result was a little different from what I had in my head, but it's turned into a wonderful little strategy game that feels a little bit Ancient Art of War, a little bit Civilization, a little bit Defender of the Crown. It feels like a spiritual sequel to Sword and Sandals Crusader, if you like that game. And everyone that was involved in the beta testing, and Adrian Galassi and Marcus Dagg, who made the music for the games, Aram Fuchs, my publisher, Christine, my wife, and everybody who was involved in the creation of this game. I just want to say a big thank you to, and everyone who has played the game and loved it and reviewed it. Even if you hated the game, thanks for taking the time and checking it out. Anyway, that's it. That's the State of the Union address for December. Games Gladiator is going to start up towards the end of the year. Well, it is towards the end of the year, but towards the end of the month. I'm looking forward to season 2 of that, and expect the mobile version of the game real soon. All right. Well, it's been 20 minutes. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day and evening, and of course, bye for now.